aspect that comes into play as we form connections with others?
So firstly, the cognitive aspect that we look into is the observation, and then depends on the attention span as well. And as the attention span gets better and better with the time, we start creating memories. And as you know, then we pass on the information from sensory memory to short term to long term and all. Now this memory also depends, I mean, on the moment what we are experiencing, what moment we are in, what activity we are indulged in. So it depends if the memory is good. I mean, the memory depends if we are practicing anything good most of the time, and it also depends if we are doing something that's unpleasant at times. So, and the most important is during social, if it's a social connection, a social situation, then it also depends on the other individuals. If it's a romantic relationship, of course, we will be probably inclined towards making a good memory or something like that. If it's a friend, of course, we will try to make a good memory. But sometimes it also happens like we, on purpose, individuals might also look out for a conflict.
Yeah.
It does happen. So yeah, that's the thing. And it also depends on the cognitive processing which one has, the perception which one has, the schemas one has. So depending on that, we go out and seek out for the situation and participate in those kind of situations. So yeah.
How often do you see schemas influencing social connections?
A lot. A lot. We can say, like for example, as I just said, like participating in any social situation. For example, you're in a group, in a friend circle, and suddenly your group, all the friends plan to go out for a outing or maybe for a dinner or a party, and it was just a sudden plan. And if you are an extrovert person, you're an outgoing person, and you are very comfortable with that part, you will go probably because you don't have any problems, issues with that. You don't find it difficult. You don't find like something out of the zone where you have to take an extra step or take an extra effort for it. But when it comes to schemas, like people who have developed, like who are quite introvert, who might have also have, a negative experience or something like that, they struggle a lot to get into the social groups. So at times you might have seen like, let's take an example in our school as of now. Some people just gel it. Some people you might see like they have a fixed group, but some individuals you might see they are in all the groups, although they are not connected forever. But he or she might be just keep hopping from one group to the another. Now that could be because of good reason, because he or she is comfortable with that part, or maybe because of some other reason also. But there are some individuals who don't get along with anyone. So yeah, of course. So as a result, the further social life also affects.
So, do you think then too that we tend to remember like our memory? Like, why do we always remember bad experiences more than good experiences? Like, what is the psychology behind it?
So, firstly, it depends on the perception and how we deal with that situation and what the conditioning is. Let's take an example, okay? A crime scene. Okay, a crime scene. There's a crime scene that has happened in one of the locations, and a criminal who was convicted and who just he's done with his all his problems and everything. He has done with this jail time and everything. He has just came out, okay, after 5 years. And there's another individual who has never done any crime, who has not committed any crime, but now the receiving the situation, articulation of the same situation in both the individuals will be completely different. Why? Because the upbringing and the participation of this individual throughout the life in past was different, and this guy, since he never had such kind of experience, that will differ. Although they both will have some kind of traumatic experience. Now, what happens is at times people just go with the flow. They just go into that trance and everything, and they just drift. They don't realize. Some people they realize it, but as soon as they realize, they come back to the proper zone. Now, traumatic experience, what happens is there's not only that you experience something, it also affects your brain in a biological factor. There's a high level of adrenal rush and everything, and suddenly you realize that okay, fine, this is something that's very too serious and everything, and you remember it for a longer period of time. And it's also called as flashback memory in psychology. So yeah.
Alright, thank you. So my next question for you is that does social media impact levels of empathy?
It yes and no in both ways. Now, social media can impact the empathy, but it depends. Like, let's take an example. I mean, you guys are teen, if you don't mind, so I take it. We are into that age, we are in the generation and we are that age group where relationships are very common. So it just keep happening. It just keep happening and coming and going. Now, what happens is when you are in a relationship, we tend to stalk our partners and everything. Now, if we are doing this, so we probably will use that information, to make a good experience in future. Like for example, you saw that your partner likes so and so thing for a dinner. You probably will go out to that restaurant which can serve that dish or anything. So yes, A. So over there. Now, in other direction, we can say, let's take an example. You're into that trance of detachment. For your thing is breakup. Now this thing, what happens is, although you have empathy, you have feelings for that other individual, but sometimes after a longer period of time, you might also still stalk your previous partner, your ex-partners and all. But you might not feel that connection with that partner anymore. Why? Because you have already moved on. So yeah, it depends on the situation to situation.
Our final question is, how do you feel the pandemic has affected socializing in teenagers? Since we've been in our own rooms isolated for about 2 years and now we're all being rushed back into school. So how do you think that's really affected our socializing and our characteristics and behavior towards meeting people?
Oh yes, it has affected a lot because social skills have affected on a large extent because I can literally see that the students who were extrovert, who were completely outgoing, who used to party and all, they also suddenly started living inside a cocoon.
Yeah.
So that's there. Because what happens is, of course, sitting in a pajama for a whole day will not, of course, excite you or encourage you to go out for a party. Of course not, unless you have that kind of event. But A, social skills has affected a lot. Then B, your, how you make a connect with other people, okay, and also to stick to that bond. There's no consistency in the relationship. As I've seen that there's no consistency in the relationship during this pandemic. Relationship just kept happening on a rapid force. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.